Hello there, you lovely people of the internet. My name is Ollie, or the Seer Mystify, as I have apparently decided to call myself, and today I am going to be turning my cat Rue into a cute girl. So I did this painting recently for an assignment, and it reminded me of another artwork that I had made of Rue back after I had graduated high school, and I thought it would be interesting to maybe redo that drawing, record it, and see kind of how I have progressed since then. So stick around if you're interested to see how that turns out. So I don't have a whole lot of the sketching process for this drawing recorded, and that's just because I don't feel super comfortable sketching digitally yet, but I did at least show how I was figuring out how I wanted the objects and clothing to interact with the forms of this character. But there is something about sketching and starting off your drawing that I think is a really important lesson that I want to talk about, and that is using reference. When people start off with drawing, and I know I was the same way, it was very easy to think when it comes to these very stylized drawings that you don't really need to use reference or that it's not that important. But through art school and through practice, I've realized that it is a very, very helpful thing to do. So for this drawing, I had, of course, my picture of my cat in the corner there, but then I was also looking up pictures for the pose that this character is in. I looked up pictures of the shirt that I have her wearing, and then I also used things around my room for reference. So the cushion that she's sitting on in this picture is based off of Rue's bed that's sitting in my room, or she has this little loofah thing that she has been liking to play with that I tried to include in this drawing for a bit, but I realized that it just wasn't really reading as well as I would like, so you'll see I'm going to be changing it here in a bit. So kind of going along with that, I wanted to talk about the different character design elements that I used in this drawing. So, for example, I of course wanted to use Rue's appearance as part of this drawing, but I also wanted to include her personality and the objects that I associate with her. So, like I said, there's the toy and the cushion that I use for that reason. Then there's her collar as a necklace. The arrangement of her clothes is used to represent the pattern of her fur. And then also there is the way that her pose kind of represents her personality. You know, she's leaning back in this chair looking very comfortable and kind of smug in a way. But then her face gives this idea that, oh, she's just this cute, sweet little angel that could never do any harm, of course. So next I'm going to be coming up to the colors, and then of course I feel like that is a very significant way which you can draw resemblance to what your inspiration for a character design is if you were to do a project such as this, because I use all colors that represent something about her, you know, whether it be, you know, the pinky color of her nose or of course the gray and white of her fur. Everything I feel as an illustrator should kind of have a purpose for being the way it is. So usually when I'm coloring digitally like this, I'll start off by just blocking in solid colors for each of the objects, and I will usually try and have that be sort of the middle value for that object, and then I will build up colors then lighter and darker than it. One of the things I really enjoy about digital art is how smooth you can blend things and how soft you can make shading. So you can see that in the background now I have a temporary it's kind of an ugly color, but the reason that I have that there is, for one, I wanted the background to be something that I knew I wasn't going to be using, and a lot of the colors that I'm using are fairly cool, so I tried to have something that was warmer but still pretty neutral. And secondly, I want something that's a little bit more of a middle value so that my other values in the piece don't end up feeling too dark or too light, just because the background color happened to influence the value of the colors I was picking. So something that I find interesting about art school is that, well, at the point that I'm at right now, I'm a sophomore, I don't really get to do things in my style very often. And that's not to say there are assignments where they say, you can do this in whatever style you want. But a lot of times I end up doing things in a different style than my own just because it fits the subject matter of the assignment better than my own style would. And so while I was working on this, especially since I haven't been doing digital art for myself very often, I kind of felt like I had to almost relearn my style a little bit, especially when it came to the shading, because I feel like my line art is pretty consistent. But of course, when you're working with a different medium, you usually have to find ways to make that medium fit with what sort of look you personally like. One place I felt like I had struggled a little bit was in the hair, just because if you are shading really smoothly, it's easy for something that's supposed to look like separate strands to kind of look like a solid shape and kind of plasticky. I feel like if I'm working with something like markers, you're using strokes, and therefore it kind of gives more of an appearance of strands or like some sort of movement. But I did have to come back to the hair a few times before I felt good about it, and even then, I feel like it could almost even use a bit more time. But the one thing I am really happy with, especially, is how I handle the clothing. I am actually, interestingly enough, in an anatomy class of mine, we have been talking about fabric and how to draw clothes on people, and it's really gotten me thinking more about making fabric look more like it's laying over the form, and then also what types of folds exist in fabric and that sort of thing. I feel like I could probably have used a bit more reference. I was doing a lot of this off of imagination, but that being said, I feel like I did a pretty good job at making it feel like it's laying over the body parts, as well as differentiating the types of fabrics of each part of the clothing. And once again, I feel like that's another really easy thing for people to do, especially if they're starting out and they have a very, let's say cartoonish or unrealistic style. They'll just say, oh, I don't need to pay attention to how folds really work because I'm not trying to make things look realistic. But really just from drawing from observation, and just paying attention to those sorts of things, it can really, really make a difference in your confidence and how well you're able to make these things look finished. I think, unfortunately, and this includes me, we kind of work backwards on those sorts of things. We start out using little to no reference, and then we kind of realize the importance of it. But I think it would be much better for people to start out using a lot of reference, getting used to drawing things how they are, and then being able to go from there and saying, first of all, that I am comfortable enough with these things to be able to draw them mostly from memory, and then second of all, being able to draw things in a way that is more aesthetically pleasing to you, but still have it look finished and correct. And that's definitely not the easiest thing to do when really you end up noticing most of the flaws in your artwork later on, once you've already improved and you've already moved on from that, and then you look back and say, oh, I definitely should have been doing this, or I definitely should have been thinking about that more. So, I know that a while from now I'm going to be looking at this drawing and the other drawings that I feel good about and say, well, there was more that I could have known and more things that I could have been doing to progress myself as an artist. And so I'm just doing the finishing touches right now, and then you'll get to see the differences between this drawing that I did in 2018 after I had just graduated high school, and now almost 2 years later with 2 years of art college happening where I'm at now. So there we have it. What do you think? Do you think I kind of captured Rue's personality? If you watched the last video that I posted, you would have kind of gotten a sense of her. So let me know if you feel like I did that well. Also, let me know if you watched my video of me drawing a kawaii pyramid head, if you'd like to see that design as a sticker, because that's something I'm considering. And if you want it, then I might just do it. So let me know that too. Yeah, I will have the link to my Etsy store where you can find my other stickers that I currently have. And I will link the music that I have used in this video, and also my Instagram, where I'm trying to post more frequently. I have 2, so yes. So hopefully you liked it. You know, maybe consider subscribing or liking if you did. I'm sure you know the drill by now. Do what you need to do, and I'll see you when I see you. Yes, of course. I tried to sit down to film a video about Rue, and look who takes my seat. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Are you happy? Are you happy with yourself? Are your ancestors smiling down on you? Cat? Stop!